But on the other hand, I do want to talk about some of the positive aspects of this. So let's shift into a more positive gear here, because I definitely don't want to just depress you guys. This shit's depressing enough, and being trapped in your house and then fucking just listening to somebody break down how terrible everything is at the moment is not fun either. So one thing that I think is really exciting about this, though, is that this does, for the people who aren't immediately panicked about where their next meal is coming from, it gives them a chance to reflect. And even for the people who are panicking about where their next meal is coming from, like, they're not allowed to go outside. They're not allowed to go work. So you still have this time to reflect and really think about what's important to you. And I think that this is going to be a reframing of society. Can we go back to any sense of what we deemed normal before? No, we can't. I just don't think that there is a normal anymore. I think we are now in uncharted territory. And this is unprecedented in terms of the way that it shined the light on how hollowed out our country has gotten. What we stand for, what we spend our time on, what we invest our emotion and energy into, and our realization that our government doesn't have our back. And I want to make a big distinction in this, because some people will use this as an example of like, see, government never works, private sector all day. And I'm sorry for all the Southern people that I always give conservatives the Southern voice, but it's just too easy of a trope. But it's frustrating, because government could work properly. It totally could. Government isn't inherently a failure. You know what I mean? Government's a failure when you don't properly staff it and you don't properly allocate the money. That's really what it comes down to. And when you don't base it off of actual merit, and it's all just like, I know a guy, we could use them for the government contract. It's the grease into the hands and the backroom deals and all that. That's what makes government not work. But, or defunding certain things until it fails. The Republicans love that. That's their favorite thing, is the means testing, defund it, make it not work, make it not have the resources it needs to do the job it was set out to do, and then claim it was a failure so that you can cut it. That's literally like Republican playbook 101. And the Democrats like to do means testing too. So, they're not innocent either. But I think what it's proven is that if we did actually have a government that was designed a little bit more effectively and was funded properly in the right areas, that we could have made this situation a lot better. South Korea is a prime example. I know when I talked with Eric, we talked about how China had these abilities as like being kind of a dictatorship, that they could do some things against the virus in a way that we couldn't. And that was very early on in the virus at the time. And the truth is that South Korea is actually the perfect model, because South Korea is a democratic country that has handled it perfectly. They had the drive-in tests, they've quarantined well, they've provided enough assistance for their citizens, and they are a model that shows that you can have a completely democratically elected country and still take care of your citizens and do it in the proper way. You just need to have good government. You just need to have a government that actually works for the people. And a key part to that is having your politicians actually represent you and be beholden to you and not beholden to corporations. And they just seem to have a better system over there. And size of country to me doesn't matter, because every government should be scalable the way that it's designed. And if you have a good government, it wouldn't matter how big your country is. You would still be able to do it. It adds more complications, but it's not, an unsolvable problem. So coronavirus has been crazy. I am blessed to be in a job that is considered an essential service. And I am blessed to still be getting paid, and I actually do have to go into work. But I don't work every day or anything like that, which is nice. Currently I'm working 2 days a week, and it's been interesting. It's been interesting because, for a while, at first I was still working mostly normal. I worked like 4 days a week, for a couple weeks, while we were starting to go through kind of like our lockdown. And it was it was normal. It was still like normal work. Like, I mean, work itself was strange because you had that kind of going on in the background, and that was affecting everything that was happening at the time. And we at the time were scrambling for some crazy orders that were meant to give us some revenue in the meantime, which was nice. But it's been crazy, and there's a lot of companies in our particular market that are just not going to be able to survive this, and that's unfortunate because it's not their fault. It's just the nature of the business. Is it's in events, it's in having people get together, which is something that we literally cannot do right now. And those companies don't deserve to go out of business just because we temporarily, for just a few, for several months, are going to have to not be able to get together in large gatherings. I think that's really frustrating, that there's a lot of companies that if the government just covered these people's payroll and told them, hey, don't work, we'll cover your payroll until we figure this out. And then, then the doors can just come back on. You can just turn the lights back on and open the doors again the second it's safe to do it again, just by backing it. And, we'll pay for it on the back end later, but I'd rather us keep a bunch of companies afloat to some degree, and especially ones that like were operating fine up until this moment that we told them they're not allowed to do their kind of business. I just think it's frustrating that we're willing to bail out all these corporations, but we're not willing to bail out small business owners or regular people. But I think it's a chance for us to truly recontextualize and reprioritize what is important to us as a country, and what is important to us of what government's role should be. Because what is government for? What are taxes for if not to take care of citizens in a fucking crisis? Are you kidding me? That should be like the main reason we have a government, is for this shit. This, and then like roads and infrastructure, transportation, public transportation, parks, natural preserves, all that, right? Like those are the big structural shit. That's what we want the government for. We don't want the government telling me I can't take a drug, that I can't alter my consciousness with a plant, or that I'm not allowed to have an abortion if I don't want a child and I accidentally got knocked up. I just think that's not what we want government to be involved in. What we want government to be involved in is making sure I have health care, and that it's free at the point of service and I pay for it through taxes, that I can, go to parks, that I have public transportation that can get me places that I want to go. That's what I want government for. And I don't think it's unreasonable to want government for that stuff. You want it for security. You want it for certain services and certain things that it can provide. And then there are other things that by all means we want the free market system to make the widgets and consumer goods and whatever. But there are certain things that just are not consumer goods. They just inherently are different. And I think that this is going to be a moment that's going to radicalize a lot of people, and hopefully radicalize them in a good way, not in a violent way, but in like a good way, in the sense that, they wake up to the reality of the injustice of the American system. And, America does a lot of things right, and as a country, and America does a lot of things wrong as a country. And I think as long as we're honest about the things that they're doing right and the things that they're doing wrong, and maybe the reasons why, and we're adding nuance to why that might be the case, instead of just saying government bad, we acknowledge that, oh, this particular part of the government's bad because we didn't properly fund it and we didn't hire the right people. And, let's just have some nuance to things, because I think too often people like to throw out the baby with the bathwater because it matches their ideology. But they don't realize that there are actually some really good things that could come of that thing. Just because it wasn't implemented well in that circumstance doesn't mean that it couldn't be implemented well with other variables and other things that are changed. So I think this is a moment for us to figure out what's important to us individually, but also collectively as a society.